Our boy is about to die by this man because he chose the first consequence. We see that earlier he found a legendary book that offering power if he open it, but he chose not to because he wanted to sell it for money. That option caused him to die and he doesn't want it. So this time he decided to open it, and now let's see what happened to him. Let's start our story. In the dim light of a tavern, the warrior leans forward, his voice low as he asks his companion if he has heard the rumors regarding a legendary blacksmith. Across the table, the bald tattooed man repeats the title with a hint of skepticism, questioning what such a tale could even be about. The warrior explains that this figure is apparently the only one capable of producing and selling items of unique and legendary grade, glancing at the high-quality armaments nearby. The bald man notes that the smith is truly a money-loving individual. He dismisses the trait, remarking that greed is hardly rare among those of his craft. The warrior counters, pointing out that creating a masterpiece requires equally exceptional materials. To acquire such rare components, one must typically strike deals with skilled rankers, yet this mysterious smith has no known backer. He reflects on the fact that even the Tzedakah Guild, which once knew the man's location, has been disbanded. This leaves him wondering what exactly is happening with the elusive craftsman. A dark thought crosses the warrior's mind, leading him to wonder if the blacksmith is actually venturing out to acquire the materials himself. His companion simply shrugs, stating that no one truly knows the truth. Below them, a sea of monstrous forms surges through a rocky canyon, their eyes glowing like embers in the gloom. These beasts, ranging from hulking brutes to jagged-skinned predators, fill the valley with a silent, predatory intent. The warrior dismisses the idea, convinced there is no way such a feat could be possible for mere craftsmen. Suddenly, a thunderous boom rips through the air, shaking the very foundation of the earth. In the distance, a massive shockwave erupts, tearing through the tree line and sending a violent gust of wind screaming across the landscape. The sheer force of the impact suggests a battle of immense proportions is unfolding nearby. Explosions continue to rock the battlefield as bodies are hurled into the air by the concussive force. The bald man and his allies find themselves caught in the middle of frantic struggle against the endless horde. Dust and debris choke the air while flashes of magical energy illuminate the carnage. Every strike from the unseen combatants triggers a fresh eruption of power, carving through the ranks of the monstrous invaders. Gritting his teeth in frustration, a dark-haired stranger curses his companions for their haste. He snarls at the thought of those bastards starting the hunt without him, his pride stung by the exclusion. With a powerful surge of strength, he launches himself into the air, his silhouette cutting a sharp figure against the massive glowing orb of the full moon as he races toward the center of the conflict. Landing amidst the aftermath of a slaughter, a man with spiky hair surveys the ground with a predatory grin. He marvels at the sight, remarking on the sheer amount of amazing loot scattered among the fallen. Behind him, the remaining monsters roar in futile rage, but he ignores them. A brilliant blue light erupts as a sword is unsheathed, its blade shimmering with an intense glow. The weapon carves through the darkness, leaving trails of blue light in its wake. Screams of agony fill the air as the stranger carves a path through the enemy ranks. He stands amidst a mountain of defeated foes, his posture radiating absolute confidence. In his mind, he declares himself the best swordsman. Suddenly, he raises his hand, and a violent red energy begins to swirl around his palm. The air around him ripples with heat, signaling a shift from physical prowess to something far more destructive. Pillars of red light erupt from the ground, incinerating everything they touch. The stranger watches the destruction, now claiming to be the best magician as well. His red-haired companion, unimpressed by the display, tells him to stop joking around. He quickly recovers, his mind already moving to his next move. Standing before a row of legendary blades thrust into the ground, he contemplates which one he should use this time. He admits to himself that in truth he is something more than just a warrior or a mage. His eyes scan the hilts, searching for the perfect tool for the current slaughter. He identifies himself as a blacksmith with a complicated story, his past hidden behind layers of steel and secrets. Selecting a jagged, ornate blade, he decides that it should be sufficient for the task at hand. As he grips the hilt, a metallic clang rings out, and he refers to the weapon as his first failure. A massive stony monster lunges at him from the shadows, prompting a short, surprised sound as he prepares to meet the charge. The stranger welcomes the challenge, asking if they are really coming at him themselves before declaring the situation perfect. He raises his failed sword, and it begins to emit a blinding golden radiance that pierces through the gloom. A wicked grin spreads across the stranger's face, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. He decides to test the capabilities of the blade just a bit, curious to see how his early work fares against such formidable prey. In a flash of overwhelming light, the three-headed monster before him begins to disintegrate, its flesh torn asunder by the sheer force of the blacksmith's handiwork. Deep within the fourth floor of Cork Island's dungeon, the air hangs heavy with the scent of stone and sulfur. Standing at the forefront of a massive raiding party is Peak Sword, a warrior who holds the 16th position on the overall unified rankings. He prepares for the trial ahead, leading a force that stretches deep into the cavernous shadows. A shout rings out, announcing that only 5 minutes remain until the encounter begins. Behind Peak Sword stand 8 of the world's top-ranked players, supported by 200 elite members of the Silver Knights Guild. While such a force could theoretically take down a fortress, the weight of the coming battle presses down on Peak Sword. He admits to himself that despite their numbers, the situation remains incredibly stressful. This is the domain of Helgao, a boss monster that emerges only once every 2 weeks. Memories of the last 5 failed expeditions haunt the guild, serving as the reason they spent the past month pouring gold into strengthening their items and every waking hour into leveling up. With only 3 minutes left on the clock, a voice barks the final countdown, cutting through the tense silence of the cavern. Despite their newfound strength, Peak Sword remains uneasy, lacking full confidence in their success. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as a frantic warning breaks the silence. A guard screams that there is an intruder, forcing Peak Sword to snap his attention toward the entrance as he demands to know what is happening. Emerging from the shadows is a solitary figure draped in a simple, dark cloak. Peak Sword stares at the newcomer, questioning who would dare enter their territory. To the high-ranking warrior, this stranger appears utterly pathetic, standing alone against the might of an entire guild while a low rumble vibrates through the floor. A heavy thud resonates as the stranger steps forward. Peak Sword observes that the man wears nothing but a plain cloak, lacking any visible armor or weaponry. He wonders how a person looking so ill-equipped could have possibly broken through the defensive troops stationed on the floors below. Suspicion flares as Peak Sword considers if the man is a highly trained assassin, though he quickly dismisses the thought because an assassin would never reveal their presence so openly. A system chime rings out as he attempts to search for the user named Grid. When the interface returns no search results, Peak Sword realizes with a start that since there is no info on him, the man cannot be a ranker. Contempt fills Peak Sword as he concludes that a nobody has somehow wandered into their path. He mutters that the scouts must be messing with them to let such a pathetic sight through. Stepping forward, he reminds the stranger that this area is under the control of the Silver Knights Guild. He explains that while he doesn't know how the man reached this point, they are in the middle of an important battle. He warns that if the intruder does not want to die, he must go back. Meanwhile, the man known as Grid remains calm, wondering to himself why his stealth disappeared and if he was detected by Helgao. Grid decides that he will no longer need his concealment. With a sharp movement, he reaches for his collar, triggering a surge of energy that ripples through the air. A sequence of booming sounds follows as the cloak is discarded, revealing a transformation that forces the surrounding air to shimmer with heat. Gasps of awe ripple through the ranks of the Silver Knights as they behold the stranger's true appearance. He stands clad in intricate dark plating that pulses with a red internal light. The soldiers whisper in shock, questioning the nature of the armor and wondering if it could be of a unique grade. Their eyes fixate on a long, metallic tail that sways behind him, sparking with energy. Peak Sword grits his teeth, his face contorted with a mix of rage and urgency. He raises a hand, signaling his men to prepare for a secondary conflict. With a sharp command, he orders the guild to kick the intruder out immediately, refusing to let one man disrupt their month of preparation. The ground begins to tremble as a roar of heat surges from the center of the room. Peak Sword's expression shifts to one of pure alarm as he realizes the timing of the boss's arrival. The air turns to cinders and a massive silhouette begins to form within a swirling vortex of flame. From the heart of the fire, a massive horned entity rises. It grips a long, white-handled polearm, its body composed of scorched muscle and glowing heat. Blue translucent windows manifest in the air, signaling the activation of powerful area of effect abilities. The boss radiates an intense aura that causes the soldiers to stumble, their movements becoming sluggish and uncoordinated. The temperature in the cavern spikes to unbearable levels, causing the very stone to glow. The entity swings its massive weapon, summoning a towering pillar of fire from the earth. The blast erupts with a deafening roar, engulfing the front lines of the Silver Knights Guild. Warriors are thrown backward by the force of the explosion, their cries of pain filling the chamber as the fire consumes the space. A warrior grunts in pain as a massive force strikes, his eyes widening in shock. The truth becomes clear. A single swing decimated half of his group. Despite raising his fire resistance to 86%, the heat remains overwhelming. Despair grips the warrior as the possibility of failing once more looms. Suddenly, a voice commands them to go up. The warrior reacts with a sharp gasp as a figure in dark, spiked armor stands amidst the chaos. Confusion replaces fear because the warrior cannot believe his eyes. Those flames scattered half of his guild members, yet the stranger in the dark armor remains completely unaffected. A blue orb of energy forms in the dark-armored man's hand while the warrior stands stunned. With a sudden movement, the stranger pulls out a heavy tool. Metal clangs against stone as the ground trembles, forcing the warrior to recoil. The warrior's jaw drops at the sight of pickaxe. He finds it impossible to believe that this man truly intends to mine, while the massive entity known as Helgao looms directly in front of him. Sweat beads on the miner's face as he complains about the intense heat and grumbles about the labor becoming more difficult lately. It makes no sense to him why certain minerals only appear when a boss monster respawns. He jokes that at this rate he might end up taking his pickaxe into a dragon's lair. A massive explosion of fire erupts, forcing the warrior to groan as he watches the man take the hit directly this time. In his mind, no one should be able to survive such a blast unscathed. As the smoke clears, the stranger stands perfectly fine. The warrior calls out to him, asking him to do something about the monster. The heat is already unbearable, and the creature's presence only makes the situation worse. Silence follows the plea. Ignoring the request, the warrior asks how the man is still standing after such an attack. A low rumble shakes the cavern as the two lock eyes. The man in dark armor shrugs it off, claiming it is nothing amazing. Another blast rocks the area, sending more warriors flying. He prepares to explain the simple truth behind his survival. A confident smirk crosses the stranger's face as he stands amidst the fading light of the explosion. His armor gleams with a dull metallic sheen, seemingly untouched by the heat that ravaged the rest of the guild. In a dimly lit, blue-tinted corridor, a young man in simple leather and plate armor sprints forward. His face is slick with sweat and desperation as he grips a sword in his right hand. His breath comes in ragged bursts, pushing himself through the rocky passage. Shadows lengthen as the young man is pursued by hooded figures. A flash of steel cuts through the air and he cries out as a blade strikes his back. He stumbles, his eyes wide with the sudden realization of his own mortality in this cold, unforgiving place. A tall man with long, flowing hair and ornate blue and white robes appears, looking down with a cold, detached expression. The young man on the ground looks up, his face a mask of shock and recognition. The nobleman stands with an air of absolute authority, his presence commanding the space around him. Looking down with a calm, chilling precision, the nobleman delivers his judgment. The young man glares back with a mixture of rage and exhaustion, teeth gritted in sweat-slicked defiance. He remains on his knees, wounded and cornered, while the robed figure prepares to finalize their encounter. Death looms. A blade rests against the warrior's throat, held by a silent, bird-masked executioner. A pained groan escapes his lips as the reality of the situation sinks in. He questions if this is truly the end. It seems impossible that months of pursuing a grueling quest would lead to this moment, especially after everything he sacrificed. He risked his very life on the line for this objective. Sweat beads on his face, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and fury. He finds the situation completely outrageous. In his final moments, he curses the mechanics of this shitty game. This is the world of Satisfy, the greatest virtual reality experience in existence. With a massive player base exceeding 2 billion people across the globe, it is more than just software. It is a fantasy realm so vast and intricate that many consider it another Earth. Within this digital expanse, the size of explored territories pales in comparison to the vast, undiscovered lands. Hidden away in a certain unexplored area lies the northern end cave. At its deepest point, mountains of battle gear and ancient equipment pile high toward the ceiling, creating a graveyard of steel. This forgotten tomb remained untouched until a single user arrived to claim its secrets. 1 hour earlier, a warrior named Grid, currently at level 73, let out a triumphant cry. He finally discovered the S-grade quest item required by Earl Asher. Before him sits the legendary craftsman's rare book, glowing with a faint light. Grid scoffs, reflecting on the difficult journey that would have forced anyone else to quit. He refused to give up on an S-grade quest halfway through. Spitting on the ground, he tallies his losses, dropped levels, consumed potions, and broken equipment. He vows that once he receives the Sun Sword reward, he will never speak to that Asher dude again. Examining the prize, he notices the state of the book is unidentified. Confusion turns to frustration as a system window informs him he needs the discerning eye of Palalian. He remembers the item well. It is a highest-grade appraisal tool with a staggering price of 500,000 won. The warrior rants against the unending greed of the game company. He knows there is no way to earn such a sum through sheer labor alone. Having already taken out numerous loans to keep playing, he hesitates. Then a desperate grin crosses his face. He decides he can simply get more credit, leaving the burden to his future self. The appraisal of the legendary craftsman's rare book begins. A sudden shock hits him as the true nature of the item is revealed. He has discovered a legendary item, Pagma's rare book. This volume contains the secret techniques of Pagma, a master blacksmith who transcended the limits of humanity. By opening the pages, the system offers him the chance to change his class to Pagma's descendant. The rating is confirmed as legendary, a status that will cause his reputation to rise by 500 across the entire continent. Grid lets out a stunned shout. He can hardly believe he is staring at a legendary class. He wonders if this is real. Realizing he could become the strongest player with a one-and-only class. However, his mind quickly shifts back to the S-grade quest. Leaving the task unfinished feels distasteful, but the potential profit is too high. He decides he should just sell the book. A legendary class item should be worth at least a few 100 million won. Memories of his hardships flood back. He endured hard labor to pay for the game and his school expenses, relying solely on his tenacity. His addiction cost him his friends and the respect of his family, who view him as a useless loser. He declares his nightmarish life over. Hugging the book, he imagines telling his parents and sister that Shin Youngwoo has finally found success. Victory feels within his grasp. He prepares to leave and sell the book, shouting for a logout. The system denies him, stating he cannot end the game here. A notification chimes as the quest, Earl Asher's secret request, transforms into Earl Asher's anger. Grid gasps in confusion as a group of cloaked figures appears in the cave. Earl Asher steps forward, calling him a foolish traveler driven by greed. Grid shouts the noble's name in surprise. A new objective appears. The Earl is furious that Grid tried to steal the book and intends to kill him to recover it. Asher sneers, calling death a worthy verdict for a traitor. The warrior shouts with a contorted face, his mouth wide in a scream of defiance. Across from him, the long-haired noble maintains a cold, stony expression, his eyes narrowed in judgment. He speaks a command, and the bird-masked rage boils over as the warrior screams at the sheer unfairness of his situation. Steel clashes against steel while he vows to do everything in his power to clear this quest. Despite the odds, he remains a sturdy level 73, relying on his honed techniques to survive. Lunging forward, he declares his intent to stop his opponent's movements once and for all. Light erupts as he activates his guardian's shield, aiming for a decisive stun. The impact rings out, yet the masked figure remains unmoved. Shock paralyzes the warrior as he realizes the stun failed to take hold, leaving him vulnerable. Desperation takes root as he looks at the book in his possession, wondering if his death will cause the item to vanish. Trapped in a cycle where he cannot clear the quest, log out, or even sell the prize, he calculates the risks. If the item is destined to disappear from his inventory upon death, only a single choice remains. He prepares to seize his final option. Earl Asher's voice cuts through the air, commanding his subordinates to stop the warrior from opening the book. The warrior sneers, calling the man a shitty, scamming Earl and lamenting the loss of his money. Lightning crackles around him as he forces the book open, telling them they should have left him be. A system notification flickers to life, announcing the commencement of a class change. Energy surges through his frame as every stat and skill resets to 0. Though he hopes a legendary class will grant him the strength to clear the quest, the reality is different. He becomes Pagma's descendant, the legendary blacksmith. One by one, skills for craftsmanship, appraisal, disassembly, and repair are created and instantly mastered. He grumbles internally, realizing he has traded combat for a production class, forced to perform hard labor even within a game. The transformation continues as hidden skills for patience, repair, and disassembly manifest. New stats for composure and indomitable open within his soul. Feeling an overflow of power, he takes grim satisfaction in the sight of Asher panicking. He believes this class is far from ordinary and prepares to deal with his enemies to clear the quest. With the class change over, he snarls that his opponents are finished. He claims the title of one who became a legend, his body radiating with newfound light. He lunges with a cry for his enemies to die, but the system intervenes. His level plummets to 1, a blade flashes, and a final notification appears: he has died. Far from the digital battlefield, a sprawling mansion sits under a dark sky. Inside, a man receives a report from the operations team regarding a class change that occurred 5 minutes ago. He confirms he will join them at the company, instructing the president to prepare for a briefing. He muses on the timing of the event, wondering if the change has truly happened. A sharp smile crosses the man's face as he finds the development interesting. Back in the void, the warrior's level drops further, settling at -1. The quest ends in failure and he is barred from Patreon, marked for death by its soldiers. As he fades, he gasps at the cruelty of those who would kill over a moment's hesitation. He notes the change in his enemy's face, which was furious just moments ago. He mutters about the dirty scammers, warning anyone listening to stay away from the game and instead live a happy life. The final word hangs in the air as he disconnects. He gasps for breath within a VR capsule, his room dimly lit by the city outside. Staring upward with exhaustion, he remarks on how truly fun the experience was. Regret weighs heavy on him as he thinks of the hundreds of millions he could have gained. His morning is interrupted by a woman standing over him, her eyes glowing with irritation as she demands to know what time he thinks it is. The massive skyscraper of the SA Group, the developer of Satisfy, towers over the city lights. Choi Nahi, the head of the operations team, greets the chief as he arrives. They discuss the class change from 5 minutes prior, an unexpected turn that promises to make things interesting. The chief calls for the report, asking if everything is ready for his review. Lim Chialho, the head of the SA Group and developer of the game, looks over the data. The subject is ID Grid, real name Shin Youngwoo, a former level 73 warrior now reduced to level -1. He notes the use of Pagma's rare book, an item from Earl Asher's quest. The report concludes that he is an ordinary user deeply addicted to the game. Inside a high-tech monitoring facility, the operations team reviews a peculiar user. One analyst points out the subject's strange achievements, including staying in the same city for a full year to raise his reputation and spending 3 months dying repeatedly in a level 200 zone. Despite standing orders to report legendary class changes, the team views this inefficient pattern as a foolish accident not worth mentioning. The chief suggests that luck and tenacity are positive traits, but the operations team leader remains unconvinced. She questions the value of a class obtained through pure luck, admitting she finds the situation a shame. The chief counters that this specific luck is what makes the case interesting. When the team leader asks for clarification, he references the supercomputer Morpheus in the development team's original predictions. According to their data, the northern end cave in Pagma's rare book were not supposed to be found for another 2 years. However, this boy broke those predictions, locating the cave and activating the quest chain for the book. The chief asks if such monumental items and quests can truly be explained by simple luck. The conversation shifts toward the technical anomaly of the minus level. Normally, the Asher quest is reserved for those above level 350, but the lower-leveled user known as Grid forced a class change early because he did not want to lose an item. While a legendary class change usually results in an extreme penalty that drops a user to level 1, the chief notes that the rules also dictate a 2-level drop for failing a quest. Beginners below level 10 are typically exempt from such rules, but Grid's penalty state forced him down to level -1. The team leader reacts with shock as the chief explains the significance. Since 10 stat points are granted per level, Grid stands alone as the only level -1 user in existence until now. Reaching level 1 from his current state requires 2 level ups, meaning the boy's stats will be 20 points higher than any other user at the same level. The chief muses that if luck continues to stack in this manner, it becomes inevitability. He wonders if this inevitability is tied to the boy's skills, leaving the team leader to realize the potential impact on the game. Fearing a disruption in balance, the team leader suggests a fix, but the chief insists there is no need to go that far. He describes Grid as an inefficient user and notes that Pagma's descendant is combat weak compared to other legendary classes. Suddenly, the chief's expression tightens as a realization strikes him. He abruptly ends the meeting, stating he is heading home and instructing the staff to contact him only if there is anything to report. Night hangs heavy over the city as a voice calls out for Mr. Shin Youngwoo. Outside the Kumho labor office, the summons repeats for Mr. Sin Youngwoo, identifying him as a student. Inside the office, a man tells Youngwoo that he must collect his pay for the job early so they can finish and go home. Youngwoo offers a quiet apology, his face shadowed and weary. Nearby, workers whisper that he is a game addict, remarking that his poor appearance makes the rumor easy to believe. The insults continue as they note his poor work performance, claiming that while most are born with at least one skill, he has none. They pity him for being so young yet incapable for his age. Youngwoo ignores them, staring at the cash in his hand. He thinks the money should be enough for the game, though he feels a pang of guilt that paying for the game is his only thought. Youngwoo tells himself he should be ashamed for being such a despicable guy. He had planned to sell items to make a comeback in life, but instead he lost a few hundreds of millions worth of money. He laments kicking away his chance at success and wonders if all his struggle was for nothing now that his precious level 73 character has dropped to -1. A sleek sports car roars through the night. The chief sits behind the wheel, his face set in a hard line. He tells himself that he sees no value in the user. He quickly reconsiders. Thinking that perhaps the boy's tenacity is his greatest asset, he decides the boy must realize this for himself. Elsewhere, Youngwoo sits in the dark, sighing as he wonders if he should look for another way. He asks himself if he should at least have one skill. Frustration peaks as Youngwoo shouts at the sky, asking if there is nothing he can do correctly. He clenches his hands tightly around his money, the paper crinkling in his grip. With a heavy sigh, he tells himself to forget it and decides to go play the game. A sharp glint appears in Youngwoo's eyes as he declares he is playing the game again. In his car, the chief smiles, concluding that the boy's tenacity is certainly great. Night blankets the city, stars flickering above a cluster of illuminated apartment blocks. Inside a sleek metallic capsule, a young man with dark, unruly hair prepares himself for a transition. He questions if another attempt is wise, yet the allure of a new class pulls at him. Even with the loss of everything he once held, the potential of this change demands his attention. Confidence rests on the machine as he believes the process will succeed as long as the capsule remains functional. Determination hardens his features as he places his trust in the technology. Every effort must be directed toward one goal, extracting a profit from this venture. A low whirring sound vibrates through the chamber, signaling the start of the transition. The interface flickers to life, announcing the connection to the world of Satisfy. Data streams across his vision while the system begins its final loading sequence. The title of his journey manifests in bold characters, marking the start of a 4th chapter titled An Unwanted Quest. The transition is complete, leaving the familiar world behind. Standing shirtless amidst a graveyard of twisted leafless trees, the man scans his surroundings in confusion. This desolate landscape bears no resemblance to the cave from the previous day. Panic rises as he wonders if banishment from the town was his punishment. Despite his hard work and Patreon to build a reputation, he suspects a small betrayal led to this exile. He turns his head back and forth, searching for any landmark that might reveal his location. A sudden realization strikes him, forcing a sharp intake of breath as he spots a structure in the distance. Ahead, a jagged mountain of pale rock pierces the gray sky, its surface riddled with dark, unnatural openings. He decides that now is the time to move forward and investigate the hive-like peak. Deep within the shadows of the rock, a sinister ritual unfolds. Hooded figures draped in dark robes extend their hands, channeling arcs of violet energy. In the center, a woman in a flowing blue gown is suspended above a stone altar, trapped in the center of their magical convergence. Creeping toward a dark crevice, the man questions why the atmosphere feels so oppressive and gloomy. A blue system window materializes, informing him that he has stepped into the Yatan temple. Dread settles in as he recalls that such temples are typically dungeons designed for those at level 150. Danger looms over him, more immediate than ever. A chime resounds as his status window appears, revealing the name Grid. His level sits at a staggering -1, and his class is identified as Pagma's descendant, carrying the title of one who became a legend. His physical attributes are abysmal, with health at 14 in every stat from strength to insight reduced to a single point. The weight of his hidden inventory reaches over 3,000, far exceeding his limit of 20. This massive burden strips away his movement speed entirely and restricts his skills, making the probability of receiving a weakened status effect extremely high. He wonders if even a fly possesses better stats than these. It is no error, he truly exists at level -1. A detailed examination of his legendary status reveals the increased chances for item enhancement and production effects. He decides to test this power, calling out for his equipment. Light flashes as he dons Mammon's greatsword and Mengel's plate armor. Despite the armor requiring 200 strength, the level 60 gear fits his level -1 frame perfectly. Penalties immediately take hold, slashing the attack power and defense of his high-level gear by 50%. Even with these restrictions, the sword maintains an attack of 200 while the armor provides 130 defense. He calculates that this equipment is nearly 10 times more powerful than standard level 1 gear, which usually hovers in the tens. Exultation replaces his fear as he praises the legendary class. He declares himself a truly blessed man, reveling in this unexpected advantage. The celebration is short-lived as he considers the environment. If the temple is a high-level dungeon, the monsters roaming the surrounding fields must be equally lethal. The absurdity of his messed-up situation weighs on him. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupts from the depths of the temple, breaking the silence. Looking down into the ritual chamber, he observes the Yatan believers continuing their dark incantations. He realizes that roaming blindly in this state is a death sentence. A single graze from these cultists would end his life instantly. Stealth becomes his only hope as he resolves to escape the temple without alerting the believers. He tells himself that as long as he isn't caught, he will be fine. Before he can move, a massive hooded shadow falls over him. A heavy hand clamps onto his shoulder, accompanied by a low voice calling out to him. Grid recoils in pure terror, a scream tearing from his throat as he realizes he has been discovered. A sudden blur of steel cuts through the air as the stranger moves with blinding speed. The man nearly stumbles, his heart racing in the wake of the near miss. The stranger tells him to stay calm, warning that such recklessness could get someone killed. He reveals his identity as Doran, a secret bodyguard serving Earl Stein. Observing Grid's hiding spot, Doran concludes that the young man is not an ally of the believers. A jagged mountain peak looms like a hollowed skull against a bruised, overcast sky. Deep within its shadows, a white-haired woman named Irene lies paralyzed, bound by swirling ribbons of malevolent purple energy. The black-haired stranger questions if this captive is truly Irene, the daughter of Earl Stein. The warrior beside him confirms the grim reality, noting that she was taken while he was away on vacation. Despite the dire circumstances, the warrior expresses relief at having a companion for this trial. A sharp chime rings out as a system notification appears, tasking them with the rescue of the Earl's esteemed daughter. Tension tightens the stranger's face as the quest details appear before him. He has only 1 hour to save Irene, with a reward of 3,000 gold and a slim chance of becoming the Earl's son-in-law, though failure threatens a loss of 2 levels. He realizes he is dealing with an NPC and another high-stakes S-grade quest. The warrior observes the stranger's calm demeanor, assuming he possesses great power since he shows no fear in such a cursed place. Panic flickers in the stranger's eyes as he wonders if he is only safe because of a hidden skill, knowing a weakling like himself should be trembling. A shimmering blue window reveals the truth. a passive ability called composure. This unique trait prevents the distribution of stat points, but grants high resistance and rapid recovery from status effects. The stranger resolves to master his class characteristics quickly. Meanwhile, the warrior bows his head in gratitude, thanking the stranger for making the difficult choice to assist in the rescue. He believes that a higher power is helping Lord Steim through this unexpected alliance. The stranger's expression shifts to one of disbelief as he tries to back out of the arrangement. He flatly denies his involvement, but the warrior ignores the protest, insisting they move forward. When the stranger refuses again, the warrior's composure breaks. He frantically asks if the stranger expects him to face an entire coven of black magicians alone. The stranger remains unmoved, demanding to know what exactly he is supposed to be aware of in this mess. Though the 3,000 gold, a fortune worth roughly $2,940, is tempting, the stranger hesitates. He remembers his current predicament is the result of a previous S-grade quest and questions his own sanity for considering another. The warrior grows desperate, pleading for help and arguing that the rescue is impossible without someone who can withstand the temple's terror. The stranger snaps back, insisting his survival is only luck. He reveals his true status as a level -1, terrified that another failure will sink him further. The argument escalates as the stranger shouts that a failure would drop him to level -3. The warrior remains relentless, begging for the lady's life as the clock ticks down. When the stranger screams that he is far too weak to be of any use, the warrior calls him a liar, convinced of his hidden strength. Every denial from the stranger is met with the warrior's unwavering, desperate faith in his power. The sound of a chime signals the inevitable as the quest to rescue the Earl's daughter is officially accepted. The stranger's jaw drops in shock, his eyes wide as he demands to know why the system has forced his hand. Nearby, the lifeless body of a hooded figure lies in a pool of blood, triggering the stranger's sudden realization of his involvement. The warrior explains the grim logic of their situation. By slaying a member of the Yatan believers, the stranger has become their sworn enemy, binding their fates together. The stranger barks back, questioning who gave him the authority to decide such things. The warrior ignores the outburst, describing their foes as fanatical believers who offer human sacrifices to their god. He warns that since the enemy holds the altar, they will not allow any intruders to pass without a fight. Steel flashes as the warrior draws his daggers, his eyes hardening. He tells the stranger that destiny cannot be avoided and urges him to stop complaining and follow the flow of events. He promises to carve a path through the opposition, leaving the safety of the lady in the stranger's hands. Below them, the Yatan believers roar for blood, demanding the deaths of those who dared to kill one of their own. A sea of hooded figures surges forward, their faces hidden behind red masks. The stranger curses his luck as he watches the overwhelming numbers approach. He realizes they are vastly outnumbered, forcing him to accept that a direct confrontation is unavoidable. The weight of the situation settles heavily as the cultists close the distance. Gritting his teeth, the stranger prepares for the chaos ahead.